Hello and welcome to the Move Me Brightly podcast. My name's Tom. I'm here with my co-host Blaine. Hi, Blaine.
Hello.
Together we have over 32 years of combined experience in the creative industry, and it hasn't been easy. We've had to put in long hours, climb the ranks, and do the jobs nobody wanted to do, all in hopes of one day living our dreams of living creative lives with creative careers. But you know what we discovered? Living the creative life you always wanted isn't all it's cracked up to be. Every day is full of inspiration, creative problem solving, and that can lead to burnout. This podcast explores the way in which top people in the creative industry move forward in a career they love while finding new ways to infuse creativity into their lives and work and keep that creative passion alive. Join us weekly as we have those conversations and walk away with nuggets we could all use to stave off burnout and continue to produce better and better work. And also just come hang out with us because it's going to be fun.
Tony's
that was a good episode.
Yeah.
Tony's kids.
Tony's kids.
Tony's kids, eh?
Do you like to call him Tony?
Hey, Tone. I call him Tone.
Tone.
Or I call him T like he's in The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Hey, T, how's it going, T?
Yeah.
We got that thing in the back for you, T.
That was really good.
Thanks.
Yeah. Have you done any voiceover acting?
I have. I was in a national commercial. A Hyundai commercial.
Hyundai.
Hyundai.
I like to say Hyundai.
I got paid many thousands of dollars for it. It was crazy.
Dude, well, let's get on this train.
I know.
Any listeners need any voiceover work? We got someone for you.
I'm your guy.
Thousands of dollars.
I'm your guy.
So we had Cliff today. Cliff's a love. You know, the couple of times I've hung out with Cliff, a little shiny spirit.
He is. He's a great ball of energy. He's always very pleasant. He's funny. He's smart. He's sarcastic like I am, which I love.
Yeah. Always enjoyed my time with him.
I'm glad. I know he would appreciate to hear that. You should maybe tell him that once.
Versus what I usually tell him.
Which is just like, hey, dude.
Unenjoyable and a dream.
Yeah. Or just like, hey, Tom's little brother.
What's up?
Very dismissive. No, yeah. Cliff's great, very talented musician. It was great to have him on the podcast. And I think it was particularly interesting to hear his journey because he's bounced around so many careers and avenues, but all centered around his love for the piano.
Yes, we also learned that he is very successful. He has found a job as a musician that he really enjoys, which I think is wonderful. And then also taken music into kind of a hobby form, another type of music that he really enjoys. So he is keeping his love for music alive by continually learning new music, which I think is kind of what we're trying to get to here on the podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's one of those people who will just always be listening to music, always be playing music. Music is his language. It's what he responds to the most. It's what he loves. He's a big Fish fan like I am, and I know you are as well. Loves going to live music. I think he's probably been to well over 1,000 concerts in his life. That's just like, that's his thing. Yeah,
I love it.
That's what he loves.
Now, I wanted to get into this in the episode, but are your parents artists, musicians, creatives?
Not at all.
Just supportive of the creative spirit?
Very supportive. My dad is a businessman through and through. He has hobbies. He likes to ride dirt bikes and motorcycles, and he likes to go skiing. He's kind of like an adventure seeker sort of person. I would say my mom is a big reader. She likes to read a lot, but neither of them really do any outpourings of creative endeavors at all, you know? And I think my older brother, Tony, is similar in that way.
Let's say it.
Tony.
Tony.
He's like that too. I mean, I think all of his energy right now is channeled into his two young children. And my sister, interestingly, was initially going to go to school for film editing.
Oh, interesting.
And she pivoted away from that. But in high school, she would make like little movies with her friends and stuff like that on a camcorder. So she definitely has the creative itch like Cliff and I do. But she decided to go the more corporate route. And I think she kind of has stayed in that zone. So Cliff and I are kind of like the outsiders of the family in that regard.
All right, well, enjoy this episode with Cliff.
Okay, we have Cliff Bond on the show today, who is my brother. He's a fabulous piano player, and he works for his day job at a company called Quaver Music, which I guess, Cliff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say it's the premier company that handles children's music and educational music, that kind of thing. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, mostly music education, but kind of just education in general.
Like, this is why we don't bully each other.
I gotta write that down. Yeah, that's good. That's good. But yeah, that's the general
Obviously,
idea.
I'm here with my co-host Blaine as well. Hi, Blaine.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. How is everybody doing this week? We're recording on a Friday. We had a little schedule changes going back and forth between, I guess, just me and Blaine. Cliff was down to do it whenever, but we're finally here, which is great. How's everybody doing? Everybody looking forward to the weekend?
We're gonna go see my mom tomorrow for her 65th birthday, which is no longer a surprise party because she canceled her surprise party, which is pretty awesome.
That's true.
But yeah, it'd be fun. And then I'm going to New York next week, which I'm super excited about, and performing at a piano bar there, and seeing some musicals. So I am super excited about the next few days. Yeah.
Tell us what you're doing at the piano bar.
So I play at a piano bar in Nashville, and me and my friends do a thing called a drunken Disney sing-along, where we take Disney songs and just kind of adult them up a little bit and just are silly. We've been doing that for 2 years at a piano bar called Sid Gold's Request Room, which is a piano bar that started in New York City, and now one of our friends moved there and he booked us a show at the New York location. So we'll be going there and premiering the show in New York, which is pretty cool.
That's
You excited?
amazing.
I'm so excited. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
So is it like, you say you adulted up a bit? Is it like, let it fucking go?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't, it's not so just like swearing, but there's a lot of like, yeah, just,
Like sexual innuendos, if you
sometimes,
will.
yeah, whatever.
Sure.
There's a group, I play piano and there's a group of singers, and whatever jokes they want to insert in it, maybe the same way that like Disney animators used to insert their little innuendos into the animation, maybe it's kind of like that.
Like they would draw penises in the clouds and stuff like that.
Yes, yeah, like that. It's kind of that vibe, But yeah, it's just like a silly, Disney sing along, pretty much. Yeah.
Well, I know it's successful. I know you've been doing it for a while in Nashville, and you always get a good turnout. And I know recently, if you want to talk about it, you did a special version of this concert. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we did. It's August is our anniversary show, and so this is also Disney's 100-year anniversary. So pitched the wild idea of doing 100 songs in chronological order in a 2-hour show, and we did it, and it was great. We had some special guests come in, and but yeah, we just put together a crazy 100-song set list, which was like the most fun thing ever.
Yeah, awesome. I know you had Jason Marsden, right?
Yeah, we had
from Newsies.
From Newsies, or he's not in Newsies. He sang in Newsies songs, but he's in like some Disney stuff, like Goofy Movie and Hocus Pocus, and some other '90s TV shows. Yeah, it was great. And then some other singers who are our friends. Yeah.
I don't know how the both of you feel about this, but in my opinion, top 10 Disney movie of all time is a Goofy Movie.
I'm glad you say so. It's a bit of an underrated hit for sure.
Speaking of underrated hits, Robin Hood, the original with the music by, I believe, Richard Miller. Do you know, like the rooster that sings throughout that movie? Yeah. I like went down a very deep hole with that musician when I was in college, and was just like, I must know everything this man's ever played.
I don't know too much about him, but I will say, doing this show, I talk to everyone about what their favorite Disney music is, and Robin Hood is a consistent one that like keeps popping up, and people keep bringing up Robin Hood. Well, I didn't watch that as I don't Tom. I don't know if you did, but I kind of missed that one. I feel like as a kid.
I think we watched it in our room. Cliff and I and our older brother Tony used to share a bedroom, and I think
wait. I knew there were 3 of you. How many are there?
There are 4 total. We also have a sister.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the three boys
that far off.
Yeah.
No, the 3 boys had a room, and the sister had her own room. Although she would end up just coming in and sleeping on the floor in our room many nights. But I definitely remember watching it's the Robin Hood with the fox playing Robin Hood, right? Yeah. I definitely remember seeing that as a kid and really enjoying it, but I don't remember anything about it right now.
Well, the music's epic, and I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah. So Cliff, how long was that set? The 100-song set?
2 hours exactly.
No breaks.
No breaks.
How many people left?
How many people left during the show?
Yeah.
No, they all stayed. They all stayed the entire time.
That's good.
That's pretty good.
What's your favorite Disney song if you had to pick one?
I mean, honestly, Goofy movie, there's a song Eye to Eye, which is definitely, I think, my favorite one right now. I think the greatest of all time, it's an easy answer, but I think it's Part of Your World from Little Mermaid. I think is just like, if I were to just be objective, I was like, that's the best song, but it's kind of an easy answer.
Wow.
And I'd say Aladdin to me, like overall, is my favorite. As like
Part of Your World, when you say objective,
yeah.
Do you mean because of its cultural impact, or do you mean the actual musicianship makes it the most dynamic and interesting?
I don't know. I think both. I think yes to both. But I think maybe just as like a song, I don't know. Maybe just as a song itself, like the structure, the lyrics, the melody.
Well, okay. How does it compare to like the Savannah Lion King? But
yeah,
I mean, I've seen that on Lion Hood, Robin Hood.
Which bootleg version of Lion King did you watch?
I mean, that's a major, the #1 Broadway show of all time. So like, you can't discount that music, right?
No. Yeah. I mean, Circle of Life from Lion Hood is still probably I would say, right up there, top 3.
All right. Okay.
I would say yes. Yeah. But
I love Lion King is Tim Rice and Elton John, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is an amazing pairing. I love the song. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but when Timon and Pumbaa realize that Simba's falling in love. What's the name of that song?
Can you feel the love tonight?
Yeah, Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Oh,
epic.
God. So epic. I was babysitting a friend's kid last fall, winter sometime, and the parents told me, like, by the way, he really loves The Lion King. So if he's ever like, getting a little crazy, he was probably a little over 1 year old. They said, just put on like a song from The Lion King or whatever, and he'll immediately like lock in. And so I put on I Just Can't Wait to Be King on Spotify, and he kept like grabbing my phone to watch it, thinking it was the movie. And he was just like staring at the Spotify of the song, trying to like scroll and find it. So eventually I'm like, you want to just watch The Lion King, buddy? And I just sat in his little playpen with him, and we watched the entirety of the original Lion King. And it was like the best night of my life.
Yeah.
It was so great.
Yeah.
Especially, I think, seeing those movies again from the perspective of a little kid, and like how in awe and enraptured they are by it. It's such a cool experience.
Yeah.
Also, I will say, Lion King on Broadway, not the biggest fan.
Oh, no?
No.
Why not?
I think it's just because it's like people walking around pretending to be lions.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we doing? Yeah. Like, I miss cute little Simba, Yeah. It's the same issue I had with the live action version of The Lion King, where they have this new like Disney renaissance of all these remakes of old animated classics that they're trying to make them photorealistic. and they end up looking like very real life animals, but the voice actors are emoting as if it was an animated film. So they're being very loud and dramatic and funny and sad, and then the animals are just like, just like I just don't get the same. I just don't get the same vibe.
Yeah.
Like the video is not matching the audio for me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like the new Little Mermaid with Flounder, and Flounder's just like, while freaking out, you know? It
Yeah.
just doesn't work for me.
And I didn't see the new one. I'm kind of just not interested in any of these remakes. They just seem highly unnecessary. They're just kind of that, I don't know, not to be all negative, but I'm just like, you can tell when movies are being made for money versus anything
Yeah.
real, you know?
Ooh,
Well, I think
speaking of, you guys seen Barbie?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Big thumbs up all the way around.
I definitely liked it. Yes, for sure.
I wouldn't say big thumbs up, but thumbs up for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Thumbs up
saw
for
it as
sure.
well. I saw it as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
Did you dress in pink?
I did. Full pink
Yeah.
jumpsuit, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say the best thing that happened to me was the Indigo Girls music being piped in. That was
Mhm.
tops, number one.
Mhm.
But you know, what was very interesting is I saw it with my best friend, and there were multiple times during the movie when she was just sobbing, and I was like,
Mm.
"What are you doing?" Like, what? She's like, and I was like, "I mean, I'm not," and I'm very famous for I just can't cry in a movie unless it's like Marley and Me, and then I need to be institutionalized. But otherwise, I'm not a big crier.
Mhm.
She's seen it 5 times now. She's gone back and re-seen it. It's a cultural movement.
It is. It is. I think
5
it's great.
times.
I have a lot of friends who are also going like multiple times to go see it, which is great. It's kind of, I think, too. I mean, it's great, and Greta Gerwig's amazing, and it's amazing for so many reasons. But I also think, like, when I talk to my, like, specifically like younger female friends, I'm like, I'm more actually just like really happy for them too, that they have a
Mhm.
movie that just like resonated so hard with them. Not that it's not for me, but I feel like it's like somehow in some ways more for them, which is great. But I mean, it's still an amazing, funny, great movie. Yeah.
Well, it's true too, because I think even on a nostalgic level, there are plenty of movies that have come out that are about a stereotypically, I should say, a boy's childhood.
Hmm.
Like there are GI Joe movies, there are wrestling movies, all this stuff that like girls may like too, but predominantly I think the audience was for young boys. And Barbie is obviously like the toy for a young girl.
Hmm.
It's the thing, like pretty much every girl that I've talked to, every woman I've talked to who has seen Barbie grew up with Barbies,
Hmm.
right? And like I have no correlation with those growing up. Like I never played with a Barbie. Like maybe I stole one of our sisters at one point to like put her in a Royal Rumble against Macho Man Randy Savage or something like that. But like I never like dressed them up or at a beach house or anything like that. So I think it is cool that there is a movie out there that is targeting the nostalgia of a very underrepresented audience, like a type of an audience's past or
Hmm.
childhood association, but it also does it in a way that is very topical and has a point of view, as opposed to just being a direct cash in of
Hmm.
that IP of like, you're going to go see it because you like Barbie, and kind of like the Transformers movies. Like, you're going to go see this because you love the Transformers. And
Hmm.
that's why you're going to see it. And it doesn't really go beyond that. But Barbie actually tried to have a message behind it, which I really appreciated. And I know
Hmm.
Cliff and I talked about this off mic yesterday in our, sibling phone calls. But
Hmm.
we were discussing Barbie and Oppenheimer, which, Blaine, I don't know if
Mhm.
you've seen Oppenheimer as well.
Haven't yet. No.
Cliff and I both saw Barbie and Oppenheimer, and we were saying that Oppenheimer really does not hold your hand as an audience member. It says, I'm going to feed you this information, whether or not you know the history behind Oppenheimer's life, the creation of Trinity, the Manhattan Project, and all of the aftermath. Like, we're not going to spoon feed it to you. You're just along for the ride. And you'll get it based off of like vibes and tones and character interactions and stuff like that. But we're not going to have like a plotting moment where we lay things out like this is what's happening. I think Barbie does more of that, which traditionally I'm not a fan of. But what I said to Cliff is I think with Barbie and having an interesting filmmaker like Greta Gerwig behind it, who's a very unique filmmaker with a very specific point of view, I think it's more understanding that there is some of that, just kind of like laying out what its themes are, because she's trying to balance making a movie for adults who grew up with Barbie, for adults who just want to watch an interesting movie, and for young girls who currently love Barbies and just want to have a really good story. So I feel like what she really succeeded in is balancing all of those different audience types in a way that worked overall for everybody.
Yeah.
So I took my daughter, who's 7, to see it, thinking it was going to be more for her, right? And I think she liked the pink, and she thought Ken was very funny, and she enjoyed it for her own reasons, where it clearly most of it went over her head, but it was so visually appealing, she was locked.
I mean, Ken steals the show.
Yeah, Ken's great.
But it's cool. I did watch like a video of Greta just talking about all her influences for this movie, and the one she like harped on the most was Wizard of Oz, which was kind of, but I think a lot had to do with like set design and stuff like that. But pretty much all the movies she referenced were these like old, huge musical movies. But when she started talking about Wizard of Oz, then it kind of, what you just said, Blaine, about bringing your daughter to this, and just kind of like the same feeling when you saw Wizard of Oz as a kid. It's just this like, at the minimum, it's like an amazing spectacle to watch.
Yeah. My daughter
But
is so into Wizard of Oz at the moment. Like, it cannot get enough of it.
She's not scared by it at all?
So I actually made her watch my favorite childhood movie, which is Return to Oz, which is still to this day perhaps the scariest movie I've ever seen. And I was like, it's time. Really break you in here. And she really enjoyed that feeling of how free. Have either of you seen it?
I haven't seen it. No.
Did you find it terrifying?
I saw it as like in my 20s for the first time.
Okay, so you weren't terrified, but the heads. I mean,
yeah, I understand why, especially a child would be freaked the fuck out by that movie.
Sure, yeah, and I'm just.
But I watch like Martyrs and stuff, so like Return to Oz isn't really gonna scare me.
Anyway, but I wanted to see how she would respond to such a weird, freaky movie like that, and she loved it. And then we sort of fell backward into Wizard of Oz, but she liked the freaky part the most. So she wasn't scared. She's like, more. So now
she's gonna become a horror movie fan. That's how it starts. Like when you get scared and you like it, all bets are off.
I've got it. I'm trying to take her down my exact path, which I'm sure there's a better way. It's been 35 years or whatever, but I figure if it worked for me, it'll work for her, I guess.
What other movie are you dying to introduce her to?
The Watcher in the Woods was my favorite one. I kind of
that's a freaky one.
So scary. I'm trying to ramp up to that. So I've done a little bit of Are You Afraid of the Dark, which I think is like a good foray into that. But those are a little bit too much for her. So I'm having to, back off a little. And we've also done the ones about the kid alien, Race to Witch Mountain, which are, in the same.
They're more like adventure. Yeah. I think Cliff, I don't know if you remember this, but I think the first time I was ever truly scared of watching anything in my life was an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark with Zebo the Clown.
Oh, terrifying.
Yeah.
I was so scared. So scared.
It's probably still scary to this day. I feel like I'd still be scared by it.
It's not.
Okay, gotcha.
It's not.
Gotcha.
I went through a little Are You Afraid of the Dark? Not like binge, but I watched a handful of episodes because they were all on YouTube or something like that. And I specifically sought that one out, and I was like, really, Tom?
Yeah.
Really. But the you know, the imagination of a child, you never know. What about your son? Is he what is he watching, Blaine?
He also he loves kind of like weird, freaky like he's really into the Race to Witch Mountain movies. They're both, you know, Jimmy, my husband, for those of you listening don't know, is just as salt to the earth as they come. Like he's like, if it's, you know, Zootopia, we've watched a ton of times. He wants to really like put in a good PG thing. And then when he goes out of town, I'm like, Twister. Like, we're just like going for it. The other day, I made him watch Clear and Present Danger, and he accidentally came in about 3/4 the way through and was like, my God. And I was like, they got to learn. I don't like, I don't know.
There's international espionage, Jimmy. You have to understand that countries are out to get each other. And Jimmy's like, I don't know, babe. Maybe we should just watch Frozen.
But I haven't gone past PG-13, but I've pushed to the limits of the PG-13 with him, especially.
With Oliver, you mean?
With Oliver, yeah. The way my dad raised me was literally like anything he wanted to watch was going on the TV. And if something got bad, he's like, close your eyes. I mean, so I was never a easy ramp up. It was just...
See, the way we were raised was we didn't really watch movies with our parents. They just were like, yeah, whatever you want to watch is fine. Like we would have nights in the living room where we would put something on. Like I remember Mom with The Sound of Music all the time. But I remember by the age of them taking us to Blockbuster to rent movies, it was just like a free for all.
Yeah.
You know,
they would take us. I feel like they took us to the movie theaters like quite a bit as a kid, and I felt like it was like I remember we saw like Terminator 2, and I forget what year that came out.
1991. So you were 4.
Yeah. And I think at a certain point, it was like if my dad wanted to see it, he's like, "We're all going.
We're all going.
We're all going." So.
Yeah, we saw Terminator 2 for sure in theaters. We saw Jurassic Park like 2 years later. So you were
terrifying.
6.
That scene in the kitchen when they're like hiding behind the thing and the terrifying. I just showed that to Oliver a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Aren't you scared?" And he was like, "No."
Oh, really?
You're like wringing his neck, like this is scary. I remember once, just to go back to family movie stuff. In the late 90s when DVDs came out, I started collecting DVDs because I was a big movie nerd, even at that age. And I remember my mom telling me once, the one movie you cannot own is The Exorcist. She's like, I think it's anti-Catholic. I don't want that in my house. Like she basically thought it was like a cursed artifact. So obviously I bought it. And I just like had it flipped in my DVD rack so like you couldn't see the title. And then I think it was the year 2000, so I was 14. The Exorcist, the version you never seen, came out, which included like Reagan walking down the steps like doing the spider walk. So it had some additional scenes that had never before been released, and I really wanted to go see it in theaters. And my mom was like, "No fucking way! Like you are not going to see that movie." And I just remember my dad was like, "Hey Tom, you want to go see it?" I'm like, hell yeah, Dad. He took us. And my mom was so mad. He's like, "Oh, relax, it's fine." And I remember him taking me to go see the movie. I forget if you were there, Cliff, for that.
Yeah. We were. I think he took all of us. Like I think it was like the whole family but my mom, and she was just so pissed.
Yeah. She was just like steaming in the kitchen, like they're gonna be wearing upside down crosses tattooed on their forehead when they get back.
Oh, we should have done that. That'd have been so good.
That would have been a good bit.
That would have been a good bit, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, as I get older, I've really kind of lost my stomach for horror movies. And it really came about in the Saw era. Once it came to like, I'm gonna cut your head off with this chainsaw, you kind of lost me. But I was all good up until that point. And then, or if they're like pulling people's fingernails off or any like kind of torture things I couldn't really handle, but give me like an Exorcist all day long, I'm in. But
give me a girl puking, and that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I've been a horror fan like all my life. And there was a period in the mid 2000s where I thought I didn't like horror anymore.
Oh,
And
interesting.
these movies don't make me feel good. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm just growing up and I'm over horror. And then it took me a couple years, but I realized like, no, I don't like the torture porn stuff.
Oh, interesting.
That's what I don't like is the first Saw, sure. It was more of like a detective story with a couple moments of that. And I thought that was good. But then I vividly remember being in college and a bunch of buddies like rented Saw 2. And so I sat in a dorm room and watched it with all of them. And they were all like laughing at all the parts where like a junkie has to fall into like a pool of needles to find a key and he's just getting like sliced up. And they're all laughing. And I'm like, I don't like this. Like, this isn't good. Maybe I'm not into horror anymore. And then a couple years later is like when The Orphanage and Paranormal Activity started to come out and it was ghost stories again. And I'm like, oh no, I still love horror. I just didn't like that era.
Paranormal Activity is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's really scary.
Loved it.
You know, and it's interesting because with horror, like so much of horror is a reflection on what's going on in the world at the time. Like if you look historically at the horror genre, and I think that torture porn era really was a reaction to 9/11 and the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan and like all the grisly ass shit you're seeing on the news, like Abu Ghraib and everything. And I think it was just like they were trying to put out a reflection of the anxieties of what people were seeing in the real world as a way to release that tension, but without any tongue-in-cheek humor to it. It was just like, the shit is really fucking gnarly and we're gonna throw it in your face. And some people really responded to it, and others like you and me, and I know Cliff as well, did not.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's also why horror movies are doing so well at the box office right now, because we're coming out of a pandemic where everyone was at home freaking out, wondering about end of the world, or is my relative dying, who's getting sick. And when you funnel all those anxieties into some type of like release in entertainment, it becomes a very cathartic experience. That's my horror rant for this episode.
No, which one do you think's done like a good job of recently of being like really cathartic? Like,
well, I think one of the first horror movies I saw in theaters in like 2021 after the whole COVID, like once the vaccines rolled out, was the sequel to A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place 2, and I thought that did a really good job because it kind of showed an apocalyptic type world where these people are struggling to survive. They're moving through the streets very quietly. They're avoiding interacting with other people as much as possible. There's a movie that just came out called Talk to Me, which is a new it's a horror movie from Australia. It just came out in theaters a couple weeks ago, and it's incredible. It's so good. It's so scary. Not like in a torture porny way, Blaine, at all, but it's about a group of teens who find this embalmed hand covered in porcelain, and if you grab hold of the hand and say talk to me, you'll be visited by a spirit from beyond the grave, and then they can like enter you, and you can kind of live through their eyes for a certain period of time until you release it. But I think what's interesting about it is it's these high school kids who find it, and they basically turn it into like an online viral sensation. Like the guy who has possession of the hand does these house parties where people do it for 60 to 90 seconds at a time, and they film it and upload it, and it gets really popular and more people want to get involved. So I think it becomes really topical in that way too, of like, especially I think more it started pre-pandemic, but in the post-pandemic way of like, so much interaction, I think especially with younger kids now, happens online. Like there's less going over to a friend's house or meeting in your backyard to play, and a lot more like you meet on Twitch and you game together or whatever, so I think that movie really excels in that area. Highest recommendation for that movie.
Yeah,
it reminds me a little bit of Candyman. Do you remember that movie?
Of course. I have a Candyman tattoo.
Love that movie. Love it.
Yeah.
And it sort of like plays on the same party game type thing, but 30 years ago, 40, whenever it was. But
There was a remake like 2 years ago as well.
oh, how was it? I don't know if I could.
It was actually good.
I don't know if I could mess with perfection. That movie was just.
I mean, the original is a masterpiece, but for as far as remakes go, it's a pretty damn good one. Anyway, we're here to talk to Cliff.
Oh. I'm happy talking about movies too. We can do that. But
I know you are. So Cliff,
Yeah.
you're a piano player,
yeah, I try to be it.
keyboardist, piano player, however you want to describe it. Talk to us about your journey. When did you get interested in that? When did you decide you were going to forego any other career possibilities and focus primarily on that?
I think, I mean, I've been doing piano since I was like super young, like at least taking piano lessons since I was like 6 or something. I think once I got to high school was when I realized that I felt like it was becoming part of like my identity, as like when you're trying to figure yourself out a little bit. And that's when I was like, I want to put a band together. And then I went to music school, went to Berklee College of Music. I mean, pretty much at that point, once I decided I'm going to college for this, I felt like I was pretty much, since that day, I've been like, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to, not really with a clear vision of how I'm going to make money as a musician, but more that I'm going to do music related things pretty much for the rest of, the foreseeable future, I'd say. And since then I've just been trying to, like when we lived in New York after I graduated college, I pretty much was just taking any job related to the music industry, whether it be like marketing or like a booking agency or music publishing. So just doing anything to just know as much about the music industry as possible, I'd say.
Yeah, and then I know you did the cruise gig
Yeah,
for a while, where you played part of you were in a cruise band.
That's the last time I spoke with you, I think, was when you were cruising. I'd like to spend a second here.
Yeah.
On Cruise Gate. Is there
Cruise
another term
Gate?
for it? Yeah.
I mean, that makes it sound like Cliff did something horrible that he has to apologize for.
Yeah,
Address Cruise Gate. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll think of another name that's maybe
Cruisophilia.
How long were you cruising?
About a year, not like, but I got 2 breaks, so it'd be like a 3-month contract at a time.
Okay.
And then you get some time off, and then you go back on the ship. That was at least what I did. Yeah.
Talk to me. Oh, did you guys see the new movie this year? It was nominated for a lot of stuff about the cruise ship, Paradise Lost or something like that.
I didn't see
Triangle of Sadness.
That one.
I did not see it.
I did not see it either.
Okay, well, when we get off, cue up Triangle of Sadness. It's very good.
Okay.
Talk to me about your emotions whilst being on the cruise ship. Was it like you made a community and you're kind of like all partying and living and you got that? Or was there like some solemnness of like, I'm on the cruise ship and the world is going on? I've always been fascinated.
I think you just nailed it exactly. Those are the 2 emotions, very much so. It's like, I remember, to answer that, I remember the first, when I did the cruise ship, the first contract I did was like 2 months. I was living with Tom in New York, and I went away for 2 months. And then I came back, and I remember sitting on our couch in our living room in New York City and feeling this like wave of like sadness and emptiness that like, and I like didn't get it, because there was part of me that was like, I was so excited to get a break from the cruise ship life. But I was like, wow, this was like a whole group of people that like, they were my life for 2 months, and I developed some great friendships. And they're gone. It's like, it was just gone like that. And I know I could keep in touch with them, and I did for sure, but it was just like a whole, and you're so cut off from the rest of the world, like it's a pain in the ass just to like be on the internet, call my family. So that you are in just like the most extreme bubble. And being on the cruise ship, I mean, I felt there were certain moments, another example, it was very intense. It was very intense moments of like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, and like, get me the hell off this ship. I'm like, I'm going insane. So
Yeah.
like I felt both of those all the time. I remember calling my mom after I'd been on there for 3 days. And before I got the cruise ship gig, did an office job in New York City, and Tom can attest to I was not happy doing that with my life. And so when I got this cruise ship gig, I was like, this is just a new amazing thing. And I remember this moment where I was on top of the cruise ship in the Bahamas. I love basketball. I was playing basketball. And then that night I went and played piano in this gig, and I was like, my life is amazing. And I called my mom and I was like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. And then the next time I talked to her, I am like, I am so insanely depressed being on this ship. So it was, and I think it's because you really lose you kind of like lose your life a little bit once once you come from living on, just like a normal life, and then you do that. I would play a gig and it would end at midnight. And then from there, I'd be like, what do I do? And the only thing you could do is go to bed, which is not what you really want to do, or you can go to the crew bar and drink. And that's what you end up doing. And so I think while I was on the boat, I worked for Holland America. They instituted a rule to try to curb the employee drinking because that's what people do. They actually banned liquor for all employees throughout the entire cruise line because they were just watching all their employees drink too much. And I think that definitely had a lot to do with the kind of solemnness. Also, you're living at the bottom of a ship. It's not like your day-to-day lifestyle is great, but I mean, in terms of what was amazing about it is that I performed 7 nights a week for almost a year. And so I think me just getting comfortable on stage, to me, that was the best part, just like me getting comfortable on stage. I only had to perform at night, so I didn't have any responsibilities during the day. So I did get to practice quite a bit. Like I at least took that time and tried to like really like had plenty of fun, but also try to like get just like better at piano. So I don't know. I have like a lot of like mixed feelings. Me and my girlfriend are actually going on a cruise next month, and she's never been. She's so excited, and I'm like nervous because I'm like I might get some PTSD from being on a cruise ship. But so I mean, my answer is like it was amazing, and like I couldn't wait to get off the ship most of the time I was on the ship. So
Now, you can just say, I don't want to answer this and we can just cut it out. But
yeah,
did you have a girlfriend or anything before
yeah.
going on? Did you get one on the cruise, or how did you navigate that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. When I got on the ship, or when I first started, I was not in a relationship. And then I met someone like a couple months into it. And then I dated her the rest of my time on the cruise ship. And I mean, I think that's an important question too, because once I was in that relationship, my feeling about the cruise ship completely changed. It went from being like feeling sad and alone to being like, oh my God. And that, just, yeah, just happy and excited to be on the ship. So, and she was also above me in rank. So she had like a way nicer room. And so I quickly moved into that room as soon as I can.
Perfect.
She was like, is there a toothbrush in my bathroom? I was like, huh, that's weird. I guess so. She's like, I noticed her clothes are in here too. And I'm like, they just showed up. That's crazy.
Showed up.
Suitcase too.
Yeah.
I would think that the only thing that you can do is drinking would like lead to just some heightened anxiety. Like I've certainly noticed that myself. Like there are times in my life when I'm drinking more, the more I'm just like anxious, and then you're caught on a boat and you're anxious and you're like, I would think that would just be sort of a mentally tough situation.
Yeah, I think it's like becomes like a little taxing, but I think if you can kind of get it under control and like, almost like kind of just focus on all the positives that a cruise ship brings, like you save a lot of money, you're not spending money unless you really want to, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, you meet great people, but also people come and go very quickly too. I'll be in a band and that band will change many times in the course of a month. A bass player will leave and you'll get a new one coming in the next day. And you're like, who's this?
Wait, you're not like contractually obligated to stay on the boat the whole time? You can just leave?
For the musicians on my case, all of our contracts overlapped. So I'd get on a boat and I might, it's like a 7-piece band, and 2 weeks later there's 2 completely new musicians in it, and that just keeps happening over the whole course. So
well,
you kind of make
incredible way to learn how to play with different people. Like, that's a skill that you have. I'm sure that you forged in the fire of that cruise ship, and that has to be a gift.
For sure. Being able to, yeah, figure out, I mean, we're kind of all playing the same pop songs, jazz songs every night. So like the song book's kind of already figured out for you. But in terms of just being able to like work with other musicians, it's definitely something you have to like learn. But musicians for the most part are they're all kind of the same. They're all just like their weird kind of quiet self, you can kind of spot them very quickly. But
It's true. We are all like that. You
yeah.
said that you took a lot of time to practice playing piano. Did you actually have a lot of time practicing with the band? Or was it really just you go on stage together and you roll?
Rarely would we practice with the band. No, we like almost never practice as a band. It was like you just show up and you just go play a show. Yeah, like you have sheet music, but yeah, you really just go play. I mean, I would start to practice with the band only from the standpoint I just got bored playing our songbook. And so I would always get with the singers and being like, let's add some new songs to our repertoire. And so then we would practice a little bit. But
And would you play those as part of the show?
Yeah.
Like you would go off the book?
Yeah.
So I have two questions about the drinking.
Yeah.
Number one is, I know for me back in my drinking days, after a heavy night of drinking, I would want to do one of two things. I would want to order a bunch of food, stay in, watch TV all day, or I would need to go out and get some exercise and like sweat it out. You mentioned that there was a basketball hoop, I think, on the top of the ship, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Which sounds pretty dope.
That's
that
awesome.
sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So the night after a night of heavy drinking where you were up late, whatever, sleep in because you don't really have to work until the following evening.
Yeah.
What was your routine normally like? Would you go up and play to kind of like reset your body? Would you just laze around and go sunbathe? Like what was that routine generally like for you?
I mean, probably depends on the amount of drinking, but I'd say it was like just go up to the buffet, which is available for you at all times, eat a ton of food. There's only so many things you can do on the ship anyway. There is, you just go eat and you can go work out. And then there was a library, so I would read. And then there was a piano bar, so I would go practice piano. And that's pretty much.
There's no casino?
There was a little casino. I mean, I couldn't gamble on the ship as an employee, but they had blackjack. They had blackjack tables and stuff like that, but I didn't get to play. Yeah.
Okay, second question about the drinking. When they instituted the liquor ban, did you guys like follow that, or did you go to the customer bar and sneak some bottles?
Yeah, both. Yeah, that too, for sure. Yeah, we would go and sneak some liquor in, but they stopped serving it at the crew bar. So that was the main thing. Like at the crew bar, you get discount alcohol, like a beer is 75 cents or something like that. And they just stopped serving you because a shot would be 50 cents. So pretty much that whole, before they did the ban, everyone just buying shots. Also the week leading up to the ban, it was like, hey, we're taking away the liquor in a week. So drink up now while you can. But I remember the captain on my boat at the time said a really good thing. We all were sitting around eating lunch and asked him about it. And he goes, it's going to be something that you guys are going to be bummed for a little bit. But in the long term, it's good for everyone's health. And when he put it that way, I was like, he's right. So, and I could still drink beer and wine. It's fine. I felt bad for anyone who liked alcohol but didn't like those, but whatever.
Yeah, any alcoholics in the crew were
yeah. But there's a lot on a cruise ship, as you can imagine. Yeah.
I'm sure. It's like, it's that isolated environment where you all kind of get to know each other and hang out. And it's the one thing to do. Like, I'm sure there were a lot of people where if they weren't alcoholics before joining the cruise, they were when they left.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. A lot of Mormons who there's a lot of Mormons who have become entertainers, and they kind of come onto the cruise ship with just bright-eyed, and then 6 months in, they're a completely different person. Yeah. That was a thing for sure. And I think other cruise ship people will attest to that. Yeah.
So you did the cruise ship for a year.
Yeah.
It sounds like maybe one of the biggest benefits was giving you those game day reps. of playing live music in front of a crowd every night.
For sure.
After that is when you moved to Austin, Texas.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what did you do in Austin? What was that like?
The main thing I was doing there was musical theater stuff. So I was music directing for adult and children theater companies, and just that was the main thing I was doing, like putting on musicals and either playing piano in a pit or actually music directing the musicals.
Okay, so I want to ask you about this too, a more general question, because obviously you're my brother and I know you, and I know your direction of the type of music you're interested in has, I don't know if it's changed, but it's certainly evolved. Like I remember when you were younger, you were very into jazz. And jazz, I know that's what you went to Berkeley for jazz composition.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it not until Austin when you transitioned much more into the musical theater side of playing? I know you always liked musicals, obviously, but it seemed to me as a sibling of yours that became much more of a focus of like, this is what I want to do. One day I want to write a musical. This is the type of stuff that I'm interested in.
Yeah, and I think like, in terms of like my interest in like certain styles.
We're losing Blaine.
I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah, almost fell into the woods over there. That was crazy.
I know. She slipped on the ice. She slipped on the ice.
I think like in terms of taste, like I'm into all of it, and I think with musicals, they're mostly built around jazz and pop, so that's still like my thing. So I'm interested in all. I think the jazz musician route, it wasn't more about that I stopped liking the genre, is that I wasn't going to be interested in like my role as like a jazz piano player. I just didn't find it exciting anymore. I would go to jazz jams, which is pretty much just like a group of jazz musicians all getting together at some jazz club on a Monday or Wednesday night, and everyone's just waiting to take their turn to show off how many scales they know. And I think there was that world that didn't excite me anymore. I mean, I still like made my, like a jazz instrumental album. And I think after I did that, I was like, I did that. And I don't need to spend more time diving into trying to be a jazz piano player, I think, even though maybe that's still a little bit of a dream, but it wasn't exciting anymore. And I think it was more about the role that I could have in the musical theater world, which was music directing, which was, okay, learning a musical, making sure my band and the singers all know it, being a part of a story. And I think it was more about the role that I could have within musicals that was exciting versus necessarily like musicals themselves. Because sometimes I still also think like a lot of musicals are bad, but the great ones are great. So I don't know. So I think that was it. It was just like the role of music director was more exciting than jazz pianist at a certain point.
Did you ever put your instrumental album online anywhere?
No, I just made hard copies, and
I have a copy. I still have it in my car, but I got a new car recently, which unfortunately does not have a CD player.
Oh yeah.
Anymore. But I used to have the sleeve, like the CD sleeve on top of the visor. And yours was always in there, and I would throw it in sometimes when like a new person was in the car, and they'd be like, "Oh, what's this?" And I'd be like, "It's my brother." This is a song called For Charlotte, his ex-girlfriend. But it's a good album. You should put it out there.
Yeah, maybe I will.
You're not.
Yeah. Nah, probably not, but that's okay.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So you do Austin, you do the musical theater thing for a while.
Yeah.
As a musical director.
Yeah.
And then you go back to school.
Yeah.
What was that like?
I went back to grad school. I just think I had reached a point in Austin where I was like, I don't know where this is going, but it just feels like I need to, after talking to my dad for a while, I was just like, I just need to like raise my skill level to another. So I went to studied like production for a year, and then at a master's program. And then after that,
also through Berkeley.
Yeah. And then after that, I applied for this job that I work at now, which is like director of music production is the official title. So it was great. It was a great experience. And then it helped me get this job, which for the most part has been an amazing job.
Yeah. I mean, I know, even going for your undergrad at a school like Berkeley is a pretty big accomplishment, because that's one of the premier music schools in the entire country. And I know for your master's program, you did it in Spain, in Valencia.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I remember visiting you there and meeting some of the other classmates you had, and I went to your graduation performance,
Hmm.
which Blaine, they did this performance. I forget how long it was, maybe 90 minutes,
It was
2 hours,
pretty long.
something
It
like
was pretty long, but yeah.
yeah. But it was at this outdoor concert hall thing. And I remember flying out there for it thinking like it was going to be a school type assembly, like an
Hmm.
auditorium with 300 people. All the students go up and play, and the parents are like, "We're so proud of you," or whatever.
Hmm.
There were like 5,000 people at this
Yeah.
show. It was
Yeah.
insane. It was like the whole town of Valencia came out for this, and it was clearly like a thing that the town does every year. Like, it was
Hmm.
not just friends and family of the students. It was locals for the town who clearly knew about this event that happens, I assume every year or every 2
Hmm.
years or something like that.
Yeah.
And they come out to watch these musicians perform, and you guys were fucking incredible.
Yeah. Thanks,
Like,
dude.
all the musicians there were so insanely talented, and I
Hmm.
think that's for me. I always knew you were really good
Hmm.
um at playing piano, but I think that's when it clicked for me personally, where I was like, oh, Cliff could be, I mean, obviously whatever you wanted to do as a piano player in the world of music, but I'm like, Cliff could 100% be a touring musician for like a major pop star or for a rock band or something like that. I think that's really when I was like, oh, this kid is for real at what he does.
Thanks. Thanks, dude. That's really nice. Yeah, Valencia was like just super supportive of super supportive of Berkeley, and they would come out to all of our shows. We would do weekly shows at that same spot, and it would always be packed with families. Um, I was in like a flamenco group, which like flamenco is just like a Spanish, you know, art form, jazz music, and I was in a flamenco group playing flamenco music to all these Spaniards, and I was like, never felt like such an American before, but they gave
I'm
us a
from
stand.
Boston.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not West Coast. But they were just like so supportive, and they gave us like all these Americans pretty much like a standing ovation for playing their music. So it was a great year. It was definitely one of the best years of my life. It was just like meeting all these people from all over the world who I keep in touch with almost all of them actually, which is awesome. And yeah, it was great. It was people just bringing all their like what they were into at the time, and then we all just kind of started playing each other's music. Yeah, it was a great year. It was awesome.
Where the locals like this appropriation is very good.
Pretty much dead on Valencian accent, by the way.
Yeah. Did
That's
you?
good.
I forget. Did you go straight to Nashville from Spain?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think I went home to Boston for a month, and then I got the job pretty shortly after, and then I moved. Yeah. Mhm.
What was how did that happen? Getting the job at Quaver?
It was just I just applied to something online, and then I heard back, and I just had it in my head. I was like, I don't know why, but I was like, I'm going to get this job. And I remember I flew to Nashville to do the job interview like in person before like I thought I was going to move here. I just was like, I'm going to go fly down, and I had some friends here, and so I just flew down for the job interview, and then yeah, there was a couple rounds of interviews, and then I just got it, and then I was moved pretty much immediately. Um,
And
yeah,
you've been there for four or
going
5 years,
going on 6 years now. Yeah. Mhm.
going on 6 years. Wow.
Going on 6 years. Yeah, just crazy.
So what do you do? How do you balance? Because the idea of this podcast is
Yeah,
people who turn their passion into a job. And I
yeah,
think you're a great example of that because you are working in the field that you love, right?
yeah.
But I would assume that making children's music isn't necessarily like what you set out to do in your head
Right.
when you were starting to play piano and like envisioning a career in it. Like,
Yeah.
I know you like what you do for work, and I know you're
Hmm.
really proud of it, and you should be, but I know it's not like the dream scenario. So how do you balance that idea of like you're making really good money, you're
Hmm.
working in this musical field,
Hmm.
you're utilizing your skills as a piano player and a director, from your
Hmm.
past in Austin
Hmm.
to accomplish these goals, but how does that affect your playing outside of your job? Do you still find ways to practice? Do you go to bars and play with bands? Are you still writing new music? Or do
Hmm.
you go home and you're like, the last thing I want to do is work on my piano right now. I just want to watch the Celtics game smoke
Yeah.
some weed and chill out.
I mean, for the first few years, my job was very demanding. I mean, I was at a point where I think I was like some weeks we were like finishing 4 to 5 songs a week. Like it was they asked a lot of me my first 3 years. And since then, I feel like I have just been there long enough where I'm kind of moving up. And I think when you move up a little bit, people start to do the more daily tasks and almost like less is asked of you. So at this point, I actually, the past 2 years, because my job is not so creatively demanding anymore, I'm more just kind of overseeing other people doing stuff. I actually went through a thing of like, I miss music and like I miss being in it. And I found at least like other outlets like the Disney show um, to just keep me like really motivated just to practice piano and like still like be good at music. Um, but the first 3, I'd say 3 to 4 years of me working at Quaver, like it took up all my creative energy, but I also like loved it. It was like finishing songs every week and they get animated and it was just, yeah, it was like a whole new experience that I had to kind of figure out. And um, so I loved it. So for the first few years, I was not doing anything else but that job. And then now it's like I can kind of do the job, and at 5 o'clock, I can kind of just like switch to something else. Um, and for me, the Disney show is a great outlet, but sometimes without the other outlets, it's hard for me to like be like, all right, I'm gonna sit and practice piano right now. I usually end up getting like lost in YouTube. So it's nice having like a real direct thing like a Disney show every month to be like, I have to practice these songs because people are coming to this show. So I don't know
Yeah,
if that
knowing you have
answered
knowing you have a
Yeah,
commitment and a deadline.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you think if you didn't have that show,
hmm
how much piano would you be playing at home? Just kind of dicking around.
I think that's a good question. I don't know. Probably not. I know the answer would be not enough. I think not as much as I'd actually like to. I think it helps to like focus the energy into something. So it feels at this point that practicing just for the sake of practicing almost like doesn't work totally. I need to somehow channel it into a goal or sometimes like I'll find games to do. Like I went through like a month period where I was like, I'm gonna learn 10 pieces of like I'm gonna learn 10 new things about music every day. And that worked for about a month. And then I just moved on from it. But it worked for a month. But yeah, I think for me it was hard to stay motivated on like getting great at piano without the real goal attached to it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of people go through. I know for me as a producer, it's a lot
Mhm.
easier to work on a movie knowing that it is getting made. It's a thing
Yeah.
that is going to happen and it's not a pipe dream versus like when I used to write a lot
Right.
and I would be writing a script and being like, I don't fucking know if anyone's going to read it, let alone buy it or make it. Like,
Mhm.
I have no idea. I'm just kind of like pissing in the wind here,
Right.
and it can be really hard to kind of self motivate you to accomplish that unless the love is just so strong where it's like, if I don't do this, I'm going to kill myself,
Yes. Yeah.
like, which is probably true for some people. It's not for me. I'm very happy to just play FIFA or watch old wrestling pay-per-views
Right.
and call that my life if I wanted to, you
Yeah.
know? No, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I've just always been someone that's like, I want to just be at like the best musician I can, but I think sometimes without pressure, like I feel like I realize pressure is just so important to like getting better. Like when I was at Berkeley in the grad program, you were reserved recording time, and so I was like, all right, 10 a.m. Wednesday, that's when we're recording this. And every time that would happen, I would stay up all night. I would pull an all-nighter, and I'd finish composing, arranging. You know what I mean? The sheet music. It took like knowing that time is going to happen, whether or not I want it to finish anything.
Yeah.
And yeah. Blaine, do you feel like you need pressure to like make stuff, or does that apply to you at all?
think it's I think it's a very interesting question. Like in college, um, it be it art or papers or whatever, I would, wait until the day before and then just really bang it out and turn it
hmm
in and be like, there we go. So I do respond really well to pressure. Artistically though, I guess that it is true. If I know that I need to produce a new body of work for paintings, then I'll just set a release date for those paintings just to apply the pressure, or I'll take a paying job for photography that I know the images have to be done and good and all of that. So I also am not just to do it for the love of the thing, but it's
Mhm.
not necessarily like I have to do it for money either. It just, there has to be an ending,
Mhm.
I guess.
Yeah.
What about for you, Blaine? Because I know you've had a few gallery openings or exhibits.
Hmm.
Did any of those come with new projects that you had to make specifically for those?
I've had a solo show before where I had to crank out like 30 paintings or something. And that was a very energetic, like creative time in my life to just get that whole body of work done. But no, I don't. I mean, I used to have that in college a little bit more, but I don't have that as much now, I guess.
Well, it's funny that you said you're good with the deadline when your example was, I just wait till the night before.
Yeah, that's what I mean by that's the only way I get anything finished. Just not
I
anything
guess
the
that
night
means good with the
before.
deadline. Yeah. Well, I know to go back to music, because I think you both know that I play guitar,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't say
And
I'm good,
drums.
but
Mhm.
well, that's my point. I think
This just in.
I'm a decent guitar player, but I'm completely self-taught. I've never taken lessons, so there's never been any pressure on me whatsoever to learn anything about guitar.
Mhm.
It is purely of my own free will and desire to learn. So I'll pick it up and put it down and pick it up and put it down. There was one instance where I played for our friend Danny McDonald's wedding.
Mhm.
And that was the one time where I was like, I need to like have 25 minutes of
Mhm.
material. And I was practicing a lot for that. But
Mhm.
besides that, there's nothing. But with drums, I am taking lessons. I have a drum teacher.
Mhm.
And I've noticed in the 9 or 10 months I've been taking drum lessons versus guitar, it is totally different. Because if he says like, all right, let's try to get this thing locked down by next Tuesday. If it's Sunday night, I'm like, I gotta fucking play drums. Like, I don't want to go there and tell him I haven't done anything,
Mhm.
and I feel like my drumming has advanced. I would still say overall I'm probably still a better guitar player right now than a drummer, but I know within a year I will be a better drummer than a guitarist, even though my time spent playing guitar will be 10 times longer than it will
Mhm.
be spent drumming,
Mhm.
because I have that structure and those deadlines. And obviously, like having a tutor who knows
Mhm.
what the fuck they're talking about, it helps,
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I can play a lot of songs on guitar, but if someone was like, "Oh, you're really good, come jam with me," I'll be like, "Can't do that. Sorry, guys." But like, I think drumming within the next year, if a bar band was like, "Hey, we're gonna play a few songs. Here's some sheet music. Can you learn it in the next 2 or 3 days?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I can do that." You
Mhm.
know.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, I think having that structure and those deadlines, whether they're self-imposed or from exterior forces, make a huge difference in like accelerating your ability
Mhm.
as an artist, whether it's taking like a fucking master class or
Right.
something as simple as lessons. And I remember, Cliff, your piano teacher in high school who would come to the house. I just
Yeah.
remember being a really interesting guy. But I feel like I know from you, and I want to hear what you have to say. But again, from someone who lived in the same house as you growing up, what I remember is that you did take lessons as a young kid, and then you kind of stopped for a while, and then it was when you were a teenager that it was like, I'm serious about this. And it was
Yeah.
having that instructor come by every week, and you were learning songs, and you were doing parody versions of popular songs like Closing Time by Semisonic,
Yeah.
or
Great song.
Back That Ass Up by
Mhm.
Ludacris,
Yeah.
which I want to hear that story. But I just remember that teacher coming in, and like the piano is right outside my bedroom,
Mhm.
so I could hear it a lot when you guys would
Mhm.
practice. And I just remember my vibe of him, because I would pay attention to it sometimes, was like he was very chill, very friendly, but he was also like, I need you to learn this thing. Like, I need to make sure you know how to do this thing.
I think he was not a strict teacher, but he was very much just like what you just said about the drum lesson, and like really just very resonated with me, and just a flashback of like you just don't want to disappoint these people who clearly care about you. And also, if you don't study the thing, he would do this thing where he would go up to a piano and he'd play the left hand and I would play up here. And he's like, if you don't practice, we don't get to do the fun thing, you know? We don't get to have fun and like try this stuff. So it was more, he wasn't strict, like he would never ever like scold me for doing it, but it was more just that disappointment of like, this isn't as fun as it should be, you know?
Yeah.
But but yeah, when I decided to take lessons with him, it was very much just like, for whatever reason, when I was like 14, I was like, I like jazz music, I guess. And I just was into that. And my mom found a teacher who like was a great jazz teacher. And when he just would come over to the house and do like, he was just so amazing at piano that I could honestly just like listen, just sit there and watch him play piano for an hour, and that would have been great. But yeah, it was definitely like that feeling of him like unlocking something for me of like, I don't know, just showing me a piano in a completely different way. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I feel about drums now, is like he'll, after the first couple months he started to give me sheet music for actual songs to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've gone through a few, and I remember the most difficult one was a Fleetwood Mac song.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one week, like the first week he gave it to me, I'm pretty good at reading sheet music on drums.
Mm-hmm.
So I can kind of like get most of it the first time through. And so we ran through it once, and he's like, okay, I think you know what it all is, right? And I'm like, yeah, I understand it. He's like, okay, practice it. And then next week at the end of the lesson, we'll play it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next week I come back and he's like, did you practice? And I was like, no, I didn't really have time. And he's like, all right, that's fine, but we're not going to play the song. And I was like, oh, but that's like the thing I really want to do. And he's like, but you're not any better at it than you were the week before. So why bother? It's just going to be a waste of 5 minutes of the lesson. Right. When like we could be working on your rudiments or something like that.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I'll practice the fucking song.
Sounds like a great teacher, honestly.
Yeah, he is. He's good. It's funny too, because he has a lot of children, like obviously like 8 or 9 or 10-year-olds. And so like I meet him on Tuesday afternoon, and the person who leaves is like this 11-year-old boy right before me. And then I'm like this 37-year-old guy with like his books and stuff like that. Like, how'd you do, buddy? And he's like, I'm way better than you are, man. I'm like, I know you are. All right. It's good to see you.
Just wanted to circle back to the deadline thing, which I think, Cliff, is sort of similar to you having to produce the songs every week when you first started your job. So earlier this week, I took a job, or sort of like volunteered for a job, where we had to make a movie. And it's got to be like a 5-minute movie. And it's just me and my friend, who I mention all the time, who was just nominated for an Emmy. I have no business making a movie. I don't know how to operate a video camera. Like I like less than any way that I should be doing this. But I was like, we can figure it out. And we had 3 days to make the movie. And I sort of got thrown into it and was like, well, at the end of 3 days, we got to have a movie. So like, I either better figure something out and like have a perspective and say what I know about just like photography and framing shots and stuff, or we're not going to have a movie or, you know, whatever. And I do really like that sectioned off kind of work of like, you have X amount of time to work on this. And then like you can't practice, you can't do anything. You just have like a very short amount of time to produce a finished product. And then you literally have to wash your hands and be done and move on. And I love that about painting. If someone has a commission for me to do and it has to be done in a week, I have a week, you know, and at the end of the week, that's just as good as it's going to be. But but it gives you a reason to not overthink and go back and, you know, got to like be done with it. And I really like that as an artist very, very much.
I was just listening to like a Neil Young interview. He was on Howard Stern, and he just talks about when he makes songs now, he writes them. He tells the musicians how to do it. They only ever record one take of it and they move on. He's like, the first take's always the best, and we don't need to sit here wasting time and, you know, and trying to make it this much better. I always talk with my coworkers now, because you could always keep working on a song. It could always be better, you know? You could always spend a little bit more time. And I always say to my coworkers sometimes, I'm like, you could spend another week on it and maybe make it like 0.005% better, maybe. Or we could just go ahead and call it done and move on to something else.
Yep.
I think it is that I like you're saying, like, I do like when it's just like, nope, it's got to be done by this day, and let's see how good we are this time.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You need to. There's a great book that I think would apply amazing to this podcast called Shipping Creative Work, which is a great one. And she's like, this author says, you didn't really do anything until you say to someone, here, look, I made this,
Totally.
and until you do that moment, like, all we're doing is just practicing piano in a room, or all we're doing is just working on a song. But until you actually present it, you haven't really like done anything yet. And so I always try to tell my coworkers, I'm like, you have to hit print at some point. You got to like print it and move on,
Yeah.
or else we're really not doing our job. We're just kind of fidgeting with music,
I'm learning this. I'm trying to teach myself how to be a rock and roll photographer, which it's not a huge stretch from I've been a photographer for 20 years, so I know how to do it, but like the lighting is low and
Mhm.
there are different elements of it. And I've been doing it for a little while now. And when I first started, I would take 3,000 images a show. And then I would go through and like pick out the best ones. And then I would go through and pick out other ones. And then I would go through and pick out a third round. And then I would spend hours like trying to create these like masterpieces or whatever from these images. And I have now been like, this is not necessary. Like you can go through them one time and you pick like the best ones. And then I delete the other ones because it doesn't matter if it's the best photo I've ever taken is in there. Like it doesn't matter. What you see immediately is that knowing it's the best photo is going to be the best photo. And it keeps happening that the first one that I see that I'm like, that's the shot, ends up being the shot like 20 hours later after I edit everything. And it doesn't get any better. It doesn't make me a better like rock and roll photographer by giving someone 80 images. You give them the one shot that's incredible. You're like, I did it. It's good. I can move on. I can go photograph something else. And I
Right.
think that there's a lot of confidence that comes with knowing like, this is good enough.
Right.
I deal with that a lot with directors on sets, which is slightly different scenario because you were dealing with time and schedule and money, and like any delay is going to add exponentially to the cost of your production because every single crew member will eventually hit overtime and you'll have to pay more for permits and locations and all that stuff. And I've dealt with many directors in the past who will shoot a scene and they like it, they don't have any notes, and they say, let's do another take. And I'll let it slide once. And then when they do it again, I'll kind of pull them aside and be like, is there something wrong with the take you just got? Or do you have a note? Is there anything you want to do different? They're like, no, I just want to do it again, see what happens. And I'm like, you got it, though. You got it. Like, just move on. Be happy with what you got. Stop doubting yourself. You set out to execute a thing and you executed it. It is time to move on to the next thing. And that can be very difficult for a person to do. And I think a lot of it comes with confidence or lack thereof, of like, you set out to execute a vision and you executed it, but now you're doubting yourself of like, but what if that's wrong? What if my instinct was not correct and we need to find gold somewhere else? Because what if this thing doesn't end up working out the way I envisioned it? And it's like, well, if it didn't end out the way, if it's the way you envisioned it and it didn't work out, then that's just a lesson to be learned that for whatever reason, your idea was not succeeding. And you just take that as a learning experience. But if you try to execute a vision and you executed it, you have to follow through with that. You just have to trust that you're making the right decision and then you move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's like the only way you can really grow.
I heard Matt Damon talking about Clint Eastwood directing, and he did a take and he's like, he thought it was good, whatever, but like obviously he has that feeling of I can do a better take. And Clint's like, now we got it. And Matt Damon's like, but that was only one take. Don't you want me to do it again? He's like, why? You just want to waste everyone's time? Like, I like a lot of what I do at my job is like producing a vocalist, like bring a vocalist in the studio. They're singing, they sing a take. I give them notes, sing a take. And I found the worst thing I could do is they sing a great take. And I'm like, let's do one more with no notes. They're like, so what? Just do the same thing again. And I'm always like, yeah, let's see what happens this take. They're like, no, that was a good take. I don't know, like, what do it's like you're kind of letting them down as like a producer in
Right.
that moment. It's like, what are you going for? Was that not it? If so, tell us why it wasn't it. And if it was it, then are we done?
Yeah.
Kind of make
Because
a
I think-
decision.
Well, I think that's also saying in a way too, like, you're telling me you got the thing you wanted from me and I performed it the way you wanted, but the fact that you want to go again means like, is there a better version of this that you want that is just unexplainable? Or am I not the right performer for this thing? Because like you think I've maxed out my capacity, but for whatever reason, you still want to keep going to try to find something that none of us even know what that thing is.
Right.
To find.
Totally.
Mhm.
I have to do that when I take, so I'm kind of in a reinventing myself sort of artist thing. So I'm doing these concert things, but then I'm also taking portraits of people, which I've never really had the confidence to do before because it's scary to me somehow. So I've been a inanimate object photographer for a long time. But now when I take someone's portrait, it is, if you take someone's portrait for a while, it's like everyone's lost confidence in the process. It's like they feel like they don't look good. They feel like you don't know what you're doing. So I am now like, do this, do this, do this. All right, we got it. You look great. Move on. And if we didn't get it, then like I didn't do my job or so, but like if you can't get a portrait in someone in under a minute, nothing's going to happen in minute 3 that's going to make it like that's the thing.
Do 100 Kegels and then we'll try again. Tip my cap to that thought.
Yes.
Ah,
I
perfect.
like the cat. I like how you reinvented yourself. Yeah.
I did. You always got to reinvent yourself as an artist, That's what we do here. Cliff, thank you so much for joining us. This was really fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. That was a lot of fun.
Loved it. You can come back literally anytime. And I feel you just fit in. You guys are really, you know each other well.
Yeah.
We didn't go as off the rails as I maybe thought we would.
Yeah.
We went off a little in the beginning and then we brought it back in, kept it tight,
Yeah,
which is great. Yeah.
Kept it tight. Yeah.
I'm really glad we diverted a little bit to cruise life. I've always wanted to know how that went for you. So it was
that's like a whole episode right there of just like talking to cruise ship entertainers. That could be a good episode too. But
I mean, that'll be our 100th episode. Thank you so much, Cliff.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
we
thanks,
appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, the best thing you can do for us is
rate, review,
and
share, write a review. Please do all that stuff, but only if it's 5 stars. If it's not,
just turn the podcast off now and we'll see you next week. Don't rate, but if you like it or you hate it and you're a nice person, give us a 5.
Give us a 5.
Shout out to my friend Jill for that beautiful review she left us. Appreciate it very much. Thanks, Jill.
And thank you to our guest Cliff Bond for the theme music.
And thank you to Lincoln for your editing prowess. We love you.
You're so good, Lincoln.
So just you're the best.
We don't deserve them.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.